The Polish embassy has released a statement saying recent controversial remarks from Poland's prime minister were taken out of context.
It laid out his full quote, "If anyone says Poland must pay reparations to anyone, then we answer, we do not agree to paying reparations. We do not and will not agree. There will be no agreement to this as long as law and justice is in power. Because if it were to happen, ladies and gentlemen, at any point in time, this terrible injustice, if the executioner and the victim were swapped in place, it would be an insult to all rules of international law, and it would also be a posthumous victory for Hitler. This is why we will never allow this to happen."
And the statement continues, quoting the prime minister at a later event, saying, "If they read the whole sentence, I think they wouldn't criticize my statement, because no one who is decent, reasonable, and who cares about the historical truth would want to reverse the role of the executioner and his victim." And this is exactly what I said during my speech. We're joined now by the Polish Consul General, Maciej Golubiewski, to New York. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And I hope I pronounced your last name
Perfect.
halfway correctly. So the Polish Prime Minister, he says that restitution of Jewish property would be forcing Hitler's victims to pay for Hitler's crimes. But what does the Polish victimhood narrative have to do with the Jewish narrative? Why do the two have to clash? In other words, what do you say to a Jewish Holocaust survivor who says, well, where's the restitution for my house, for my father's farm? You say to her, we were victims too?
No, absolutely. I think, the sound bites that were bandied about, the headlines, sensational headlines that misquoted the Prime Minister, and thank you for quoting him exactly what he said, want to drive a wedge between Polish and Jewish relations. The context is most important here. Poland during the Second World War lost 6 million of its citizens. Three of them, 3 million were Jews, were Polish citizens of Jewish origin. We were all victims of what Hitler was doing. He expropriated and destroyed Poland. I think the latest damage estimation I saw was close to $900 billion in today's dollars. And and we have not seen Poland, and everybody who lost their property have not seen a cent, a dime from Germany for those damages. So what the Prime Minister was saying basically is very simple. You do not want a victim, which is everybody who was a Polish citizen at the time, whether Jewish or Christian or what have you, to somehow be now charged with the duty to pay for the damages that were inflicted by Germany. Hence, that posthumous victory of Hitler. So this is not about clashes of victimhoods. This is about a certain misrepresentation that somehow we are opposed.
There was a recent study on Holocaust remembrance in Europe, and I'd like to read another couple of quotes to you here. It was called the Holocaust Remembrance Project, and it was conducted by researchers in part from Yale University and Grinnell College. And here's the first quote. The first quote says, "Many Poles were complicit in the crimes committed on their land. When a Polish minister questions Polish participation in the murder of hundreds of their Jewish neighbors during a Holocaust-era program, he is wrong." And then one of the second conclusions of the report said that the government spends considerable effort on rewriting history rather than acknowledging and learning from it. So how do you respond to those comments?
This is very, very disappointing, the kind of quotation, dissemination of this kind of information. You might remember that in June last year, last year, excuse me, it was already last year, the Prime Minister of Poland and the Prime Minister Netanyahu signed the joint declaration, precisely trying to set that record straight. It basically said that there were Poles who were cruel to the Jews, and there were evidently instances where Poles participate in the murder of the Jews, but at the same time,
before the Holocaust, during the Second War, Holocaust.
And there were numerous Poles, way beyond what we have in Yad Vashem. We have over close to 7,000, which is the largest group of righteous among all, that actually actively aided. And twice in the document, it was said that Poland and the Polish government in exile, because remember, we're in occupied territory, that government organized systematic aid to the Jews, which was absolutely exceptional and unheard of in Europe at the time. So I think when we put all the perspectives together, we have a balanced view that obviously Poland was an occupied country by Germany. There were bad apples, there were schmaltzowniks, or people who were criminals who did perform certain horrible crimes against their compatriots, because Jews were Polish. But at the same time, we had absolute numerous networks and official systematic support. Remember, the Polish government in exile was actually executing those who were betraying the Jews, executing Poles who were betraying the Jews in their own country, in the occupied territory. So, I think in comparative standards, when you compare, let's say, the Polish history during the Holocaust, let's say, to France or any other country, pretty much by and large, Poland emerges quite in positive light. But there are some interest in kind of changing their perspective. And again, as I said, driving a wedge, trying to create conflict between Polish and Jewish
Consul General, I want you to take a listen to a Holocaust survivor from Poland. Her name is Eva. She was on our show a couple of weeks ago. Let's watch.
I would say, you know, it's coming to me. You sold it, although it was on my name. How could you sell anything with somebody's name?
What do you say to her?
How could you sell?
She says the Polish government sold my property when it was under my name. It's under her family's name. She's talking about her family's house and her family's, I think, a business. What would you say to this person?
We're hitting where the rubber hits the road. I mean, for Poland, property rights are sacrosanct. Notwithstanding whether you're Jewish, German, Danish, or whoever, doesn't matter what your origin is. Under Polish law, if you have a rightful claim to property, if you're an heir, and you can prove in court that was unlawfully seized, you can claim it back. I know personally a lot of people who claim back property, not just Polish Jews, but I know some, but others. There is absolutely no discrimination here, and I think the principle of anti-discrimination is very important. One issue that kind of riles a lot of people, and I think there's a misunderstanding, is this question of heirless property. And I think this is what the Prime Minister was also getting at. He mentioned damages, right? And he mentioned reparations in that context. Why is he using those words? It's because of the fact that the Germans created a situation where there are no heirs, precisely because of his actions, his murderous, systematic, exterminatory actions that killed 6 million people. There are no heirs to certain property, and there is absolutely no principle of law anywhere to somehow, reimburse this, to those who don't exist, especially if you ask somebody who was the victim. So I think this is the kind of thing that a lot of people don't understand. They don't get the context.
But, I mean, in this particular case, Eva exists. She was in this very studio. Her mom put the property under her name, and yet she's telling us that for years she's been trying to get this property.
First of all, as I said, under private law, in Polish courts, you can absolutely have this kind of case. And as I said, I know people. I don't know that case in particular. I don't. I would love to get to know a bit more about it. People actually did manage to reclaim their rightful property.
Well, we can make the connection for you. Thank you
Great.
very
Thank you so
much for this interview,
Maciej
Consul
Golubiewski,
General of Poland.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate that.